Nothing to hide, and I'm gonna break it straight down the pipe for you, face to face.
Being tough gets you hurt. This is a sharp game, a skill game, a chess game, and I think people see that.
Having lost that fight, walking out of the ring, what were your memories? What did you think?
Boxing's a lot tougher than I expected.
UFC.
You don't even know. You don't know my ability though.
That's true. That's true.
You don't.
I don't know where you might go. I just give you where I think you're at, which I'm entitled to, which is average. Average is very complimentary.
The face-to-face interview between Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua gives fans a tense look at two fighters from completely different backgrounds. Jake Paul, the YouTuber-turned-boxer, steps up to Joshua with confidence and attitude. Joshua stays calm and focused, looking at Paul like a seasoned pro sizing up a challenger. During the interview, Paul admits that Joshua's size, skill, and champion mentality make him a real threat. He shows respect and says he knows this could be the toughest fight of his career, but he's ready to prove himself.
Relentless style, this forward pressure, taking lots of damage and not giving a fuck and returning that damage more than what his opponents are giving him. And that.
With the fight officially set for December 19th, the excitement has grown even more. Jake Paul made it clear that this isn't just another celebrity boxing event, it's a real challenge against a former unified heavyweight champion. He admitted that fighting Joshua is a huge risk, but said that taking big risks is the only way to achieve greatness. Joshua stayed calm and confident. He complimented Jake's business skills and hard work, but reminded everyone that experience is important. Joshua said that once the bell rings, respect disappears and instincts take over. Both fighters agreed that this fight could change everything. Either Jake shocks the world, or Joshua proves once again why he's one of the best.
I like the challenge. People, that's the criticism. Fight someone in their prime, who's a beast. I think people just want to see me lose. That's really what the message is behind it all. And Anthony Joshua is an insane fight, but I want that challenge. We've been DMing back and forth. He wants to make it happen. He called me up, and it's looking very likely for next year.
I want to fight Anthony Joshua exclusive because I know that I will beat Anthony Joshua. I know I will beat. Knocked out, right? Yeah. He doesn't have a chin, and he has no skill, and he's stiff. And I love you, Anthony. We're friends. But I want to fight you.
Former UFC champion Michael Bisping shared his thoughts on the matchup, calling it a win-win situation for Jake Paul. He says that even if Paul loses, he'll still earn a lot of respect for stepping in the ring with a former heavyweight world champion. Bisping believes that taking on Joshua shows Paul isn't just doing celebrity boxing, he's willing to take real risks. And if Paul somehow wins, it would take his credibility in boxing to an entirely new level. Bisping says this kind of high-stakes challenge is exactly the type of risk Paul should be praised for. However, Bisping thinks the fight could be a lose-lose for Anthony Joshua. If Joshua wins, critics will say he took an easy, low-risk fight just for the big payday instead of facing elite contenders. But if he loses, his reputation could suffer badly. Losing to a YouTuber-turned-boxer would raise serious questions about his legacy and his...
It's a win-win for Jake Paul is because, listen, if he wins, then he's beaten a former heavyweight boxing world champion, certainly one of the best heavyweights of his generation, and of course, a man that is way bigger than Jake Paul. Of course, it's a win. And if he loses, it's still a win for Jake Paul because he had the balls. He was man enough. He was willing to test himself. He would prove everyone wrong, all his critics, like me. And by the way, I'm not like out there on an island by myself. Everyone says the same thing. And he would potentially prove all of those critics wrong. Well, yeah, he would, maybe, unless there's some funny business, right? And for Anthony Joshua, as I said, this is kind of a lose-lose, right? Because if he wins, people are still going to say, well, you only beat Jake Paul, right? The man that lost to Tommy Fury, after all, right? That's the only loss in his record, Tommy Fury. You're telling me that Tommy Fury is going to beat him and then Anthony Joshua's not going to beat him? So if he beats him, he gets no credit. And if he loses, then holy can you imagine? That would be the biggest downfall of any boxer's career. The reality is, he's not going to lose. There is no way on this earth that Jake Paul can beat Anthony Joshua in a boxing match. That's just a fact, okay? Look at what he did to Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou hits as hard as a Ford Escort, going 100 miles an hour or whatever that stat was. Comes from the UFC. He was the UFC heavyweight champion of the world. Has a good go against Tyson Fury, but goes up against Anthony Joshua and gets flatlined. Every single punch that was thrown was landed, and every punch that landed put Francis Ngannou down, okay? So to stand there and think that Jake Paul, who's much, much smaller, who has way less experience, that doesn't weigh anything near him, is going to have a chance. And not to
Either way, the fight seems more like a business decision than a legacy-defining moment for Joshua. One major factor in this matchup is the weight difference between the two fighters. Jake Paul reportedly weighed around 200 pounds for his fight against Mike Tyson, while Anthony Joshua normally fights at about 252 to 255 pounds as a
I legit think it was probably close to happening. Now you're telling me there were discussions and potentially, signed to fight Gervonta Tank Davis. And again, I do believe the reason for that is Jake's massive size advantage. Again, that's like a 100-pound weight advantage. How would that even work? Like, how do you even... Never mind. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole because it's not official and I don't think it's happening. So let's just not even broach that subject. But let's talk about the Anthony Joshua fight. And I want to hear the clip again because I just can't believe what I'm hearing. Let's play it again.
I know my boundaries. I want to fight Anthony Joshua exclusive because I know that I will fucking beat Anthony Joshua's ass. I know I will beat...
knocked out, right?
Yeah. He doesn't have a chin and he has no skill and he's stiff. And I love you, Anthony. We're friends, all this shit, but I want to fight you.
So Jake says he wants to fight Anthony Joshua. He says he's going to beat Anthony Joshua's ass, that he doesn't have a chin, that he has no skill, and that he's stiff. And then you hear Derek again with the porn creeper stash chime in. Didn't he just get knocked out? Yeah, by Daniel Dubois, who is a reigning heavyweight champion of the world. Not that that means anything at all, I don't guess. Yeah, Jake's just flat out wrong here with a lot of his critiques of Anthony Joshua in comparison to himself. Like, if you want to say for the elite heavyweights in the world that Anthony Joshua has a little bit less skill and is more stiff than they are, then okay, but Anthony Joshua is still an elite heavyweight in the world. And then to go as far as to say, I will beat Anthony Joshua's ass, that he doesn't have a chin, no skill, he's stiff. Like, again, Jake can have this opinion. And he says that, that we're friends and I love you, but I want to fight you. And Jake may even believe that, but he's just wrong. Like, Anthony Joshua took heavy shots against Daniel Dubois before he was knocked out, and really, the reason he was knocked out is because he got in a firefight and threw an uppercut as a lead because Ben Davidson was...
Anthony Joshua has faced some of the biggest names in boxing, giving him far more experience than Jake Paul. Joe Rogan has also pointed this out when discussing the potential fight. Joshua has gone through tough battles with elite fighters, while Paul is still relatively new to the sport.
Man, that's what that is. He's only like 27. That guy's fucking scary. He's dangerous. Going into that fight, it seems like he believed that he was just gonna dominate him. He was so aggressive. He was just in the pocket constantly, just forcing Joshua to go to war. It was wild.
Everybody was like, look, to Joshua, I think you're done.
Right after he knocks out Francis Ngannou, and everyone's like, you're back.
Yeah.
Flattened Francis Ngannou, and everyone's like, oh, Joshua's.
Dana White has been very dismissive of Jake Paul. He says he stopped taking Paul seriously after Paul lost to an actual boxer. White also doesn't respect Paul's earlier fights, calling them more like pay-per-view events than real boxing matches. He even laughed off the legal threats from Paul's team after he suggested some fights might be suspicious. White says he doesn't think the fights are fixed, but he also doesn't see them as true, legitimate boxing matches.